Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, show in which we react to the latest Arsenal news and get your thoughts in our live chat as to what on earth is going on with the world of Arsenal, especially as we edge towards the end of the transfer window. And things are hotting up, things are happening, things are moving. I'm sure that you have had your phones on all the notifications possible to the point where your pocket is basically continuously vibrating as you get notifications throughout the day from your very trusted ITKs and media outlets throughout the lands. And that is certainly what we're seeing from Arsenal right now. There's movement regarding Torreira. There's stuff going on with Aouar. There's things being mentioned about Saliba now as well. And there's lots of things for us to break down and talk about. And of course, today, Mikel Arteta addressed the media ahead of Arsenal's game against Sheffield United on Sunday, in which he was asked several questions about the transfer market. And we're going to go into some of the stuff that Mikel said and break them down and try and make sense of some of all of that as well. And ultimately get some of your thoughts and reactions to that as well as my own too. So let's jump in with that. And very quickly, welcome live chat. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, people. Mark A, good to have you in here to join us for a live one. Finally, there you go. You've made it. You turned those notifications on and they gave you that notification. So thankfully, you joined us for that. Let's see what everyone else is playing. Kenjamin says, what's going on in this football club? Loan out Torreira and Saliba. We are not selling the deadwood and no new players are in. This is the process, guys. This is the process. Bradley Costello says, how reliable is the fourth official on Twitter account? It says we've reached an agreement with Leon. Bradley, I don't know anything about that account. I think it was raised to me earlier today. I saw someone post it in our WhatsApp group. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything of how reliable it is. So sorry that I can't be more helpful in that respect. We are a massive club, says Christopher. Yeah, well, hopefully we act like one in the last few days. Let's fingers crossed. Hope we act like one in the last few days of the window. So let's go into what Mikel Arteta has been saying ahead of this. If we scroll down and talk about transfers, which we have. Here we go. So we start off with talking about Houssem Aouar. Well, I am very confident, he says, in what we are trying to do internally. I am getting clarity and support from everybody at the club to try and improve the team if we can, but most importantly as well, to get the right balance in the squad for now and the way we want to evolve the squad in the future. We are all very much aligned, but I'm afraid that I cannot give you any updates or news. I mean, oh, surprise, surprise. We're not getting any information from the manager specifically. I mean, do you remember when even Gabriel was pretty much confirmed? Arteta told us nothing. So in that regard, I'm not expecting him to go, yes, we're going to sign Aouar, because that's not going to happen, is it? So he was asked about Aouar. It was a very cryptic response. I'm still very hopeful of this deal happening. Today is the mythical day, if we all remember. Today had to be the day that Arsenal reached the agreement. That was the deadline that Michel Aulas set any club that wanted any player. So that was Depay, that was Dembele, that was Aouar. These players that have been linked to other teams around Europe and are yet to be sold. Today was the deadline. So whether or not that was just to rush things along, the whole links to PSG, you may have seen come out yesterday. Aulas, when they signed Paqueta a couple of days ago, said that there was a third club as well as Arsenal and Juventus interested in Aouar. It appears that PSG are that third club. How credible this information is from the president himself is even questionable in itself, because it could be a tactic. It could be Aulas trying to panic Arsenal into getting them to do something they don't necessarily want to do. Thankfully, I'm glad that we're not doing that. I don't want us to panic into spending more money than we are able to and getting ourselves into a silly position. But I want us to get a good deal for Aouar, and ultimately I want to get this deal done. It's just going to take that little bit of extra time. There are reports circulating this morning that supposedly Juninho, who is, I believe, their sporting director, and our technical director, Edu, had good conversations this morning surrounding that. So who knows at this stage? You never know. We might be on here a little bit later this evening talking about the possibility of Aouar joining the Arsenal. Let's move on to his thoughts about Lucas Torreira. He says, I will give you an update with any player when we have an update to give. At the moment, unfortunately, there is no concrete for any player. So Torreira, I'm not going to talk too much about. There's a reason for that. I'm very, very happy because I've wanted to get him on the show for such a long time. But Alvaro Romeo, who you may know if you listen to the Totally Football Show, he's their Spanish correspondent. He works with TalkSport, he works with Dazen, he works with BBC, he works with loads of different places, and he's fantastic in regards to talking about Spanish football. And Alvaro is going to be coming on the show this evening. It's going to be a pre-recorded show. It won't be live, unfortunately, but it is going to be out tonight. It's going to be out later on, probably around 8:30, I would imagine. Probably about 8:30 it'll be out this evening, so you'll be able to listen to that. And I'm going to talk to Alvaro about Torreira, about Partey, about this whole situation going on between Atletico, and talk about the story of the summer, really, between Arsenal and Atletico, and how this deal has kind of come about and what he makes of all of it as well. He's told me he has a bit of a soft spot for the Arsenal, so that's going to be a really interesting chat. So make sure you subscribe and turn those notifications on to get that information, because it's going to be a really, really good interview. Let's carry on as Arteta addresses William Saliba. He says, well, as I explained, the difficult year that the player had and the plan we had for him for the transition year, we could not achieve. We are looking at different options to try and have the best possible development for the player and to protect our intentions with William for the future. We want to both be aligned and make the best decision for now and for the future. There's a lot going on around Saliba, a lot of attention in regards to what we need to do with him, because a lot of people kind of wanted to see him in the Liverpool game. A lot of people wanted to see him in the Leicester game before that. A lot of people actually kind of expected him to come straight into the first team. And after a very disrupted last season in which he was hoped to go to Saint Etienne and play all year, which didn't happen because of injury and, of course, Liga being curtailed very, very early on in comparison to all the other clubs that managed to finish their seasons. He wasn't able to get that. And so he isn't yet ready for the Premier League. And I've seen some people coming out and saying, why on earth did we buy him? What the hell is all this? Like, why are we not getting him into the first team? Oh, I'm sorry about the fact that he's not ready, guys. I'm sorry. It's not my fault. I don't know why I'm apologising. But you don't rush people into situations that they're not ready for yet. And it could damage his not only his reputation, his ability, his confidence, his mental state, all things that you need to consider. These aren't just they aren't your FIFA characters. They have like lives, they have progression, they have details about their fitness and their well-being, that everything needs to be considered in the right way to make a decision about when a player comes into the first team. It was expensive. It was a lot of money. 27 million quid for an 18-year-old is a lot of money. But that makes it even more important to make sure that we spend that money well and that we get the best from this player when he plays for our club. So there was links to go into Rennes on a possible loan deal. Now, the information at the moment is that Rennes are basically going to be getting Daniele Rugani from Juventus, which kind of scuppers any ideas of that. But for Saliba to go out on loan makes absolute sense. Absolute sense. If you think about the centre-backs that we've currently got in our team, David Luiz is here for at least another year. We've got Gabriel that's coming and done really well. We've got Rob Holding that's doing exceptionally well. And I know that everyone wants to see the new toy. I get that. But Rob Holding's done really, really well this season so far. I haven't been able to put much wrong on him at all. He made a couple of mistakes in the Liverpool game against Sadio Mane, of all people, that's going to force you into errors. But he's been really good. Then we've got Pablo Mari that's come back from injury. We've got Mustafi, if he isn't sold, that isn't coming back from injury. We still don't know what's going on with Socrates. I'm kind of expecting him to be moved on at the last minute. If not, he is still there. There are plenty of defenders at the club. And I know that the easy response to say is, it's Mustafi, it's Socrates, it's Marie, it's Holding. But you don't know how good Saliba will be if he was to come in. You don't know, because he's a 19-year-old kid that has come in from Liga after playing very little football last season. So to rush him into the first team makes no sense whatsoever. So if it is deemed that he should go out on loan for 6 months to a year, I'm completely fine with that, and I have confidence in the defenders that we have. I've liked what I've seen from David Luiz. I've liked what I've seen from Holding. I've liked what I've seen from Gabriel. And I'm still waiting to see more from Pablo Mari as well, who still excites me. I'm still interested about Pablo Mari to see what he would bring to the team, especially considering that we've already got Gabriel in there to have two left-footed centre-backs and how they might combine and play together. Okay, so that's kind of my feelings around William Saliba at the moment. Carrying on the importance of the next few days in the window. Yeah, I think it's a crucial moment because in the end, it defines the people, the players, the balance and the quality that you're going to have for the rest of the season. We need to make some decisions in the next 3 days. I think everything has been delayed so much, not just us, but probably every team because of the context that we're in at the moment in terms of COVID. We will try to make the best possible decisions at the end of the window. Whatever we have, we will go for it fully convinced and prepared to have a good season. So that's kind of his thoughts on if we didn't get anyone in. He's going to be fully committed. He's going to be positive. That's the best he can get. Let's have a look at some of people's reaction to those words on William Saliba. Vinny Eagle says we should be offering him to the likes of Fulham, not abroad, so we can learn the league. Now, the only way I'd see him going abroad is if it was someone that was playing in Europe to get some significant minutes in European competition as well. That's sort of letting that transition go through as well. So for sure, I genuinely believe that he should be going out somewhere that gives you that competitive nature of European football, if not playing in the Premier League. Fulham was a possibility. I've seen other players like West Ham, possibly linked. West Ham are wanting a centre-back, so he could go there on loan. Who knows at the moment? Who knows at this stage? Any update on Mavropanos? Mavropanos is on loan, mate. He's in Stuttgart. I haven't heard anything about Mavropanos in terms of any extra bits of news about being recalled or whatever. He's gone on loan to Stuttgart as far as I'm aware, and there's been no issues in that sense. I'm just going to check just to see that. Yeah, I don't see anything in regards to Mavropanos at all. So no updates in that sense, mate. Sorry. Carol Bailey says, totally agree with you, Tom. Let Saliba go out on loan to further his football education. We also still have Chambers. Yes, exactly, Carol. We have Chambers. We have so many centre-backs that at this point I've forgotten some. So, yeah, even that, we've got Chambers at the end of the day. Christian says, big up, bro. Can you tell me your thoughts on giving Torreira to Atleti? How will that benefit us getting Partey? Christian, I can do that. What you need to do is you need to make sure you click that notification bell on the channel, because at 8:30 p.m. this evening, I'll be doing an interview with Alvaro Romeo, who's like a massive expert into the Spanish football. And I'll be chatting to him about Torreira, chatting to him about Partey. So that'll be coming on a little bit later this evening. So we're just going to pause the Torreira stuff for now, because that's going to be coming on a little bit later, especially considering things may have changed by that point. Ingars says Saliba should play alongside Gabriel. Just give him experience straight away. Ingars, the issue with that is that you're throwing a 19-year-old with very little first-team experience at the top level, who's had a really, really disjointed season, into a defence of Arsenal that's got serious issues. And then you're suggesting he goes into a back four, which makes us even more vulnerable at the back, which could effectively ruin the beginning of his development. You cannot throw into a defence. You can't throw a player of that, like that situation. It just doesn't make much sense right now to do that. You can't just throw him in. You can't just throw him in. It's as simple as that. I don't get the outcry to be desperate. Like, I know that people want to see new players, but you have to be patient. You can't just be throwing players in. Otherwise, you're just going to wreck careers. It's as simple as that. Alimi says, why would we want to loan Saliba? Is Arsenal okay when we have a lot of games ahead of us? Now, I think there's a fair argument to turn around and say that we've got a Europa League campaign where we've now got Dundalk, Rapid Vienna, who is a good side in Austria, you have to say. And there's one more. Please tell me. Mulder, isn't it? I believe it's Mulder, our third side that we're playing. And I think they are significant games in which Saliba can get some really good minutes in. The issue is that they're 6 games. It's 6 games, and then you're into the knockout stages, which are massively important for Arsenal, because I see the Europa League being a much easier way to progress to the Champions League this season than I do the Premier League. So whether Saliba can go into those games, if he's performed well enough, maybe. But I'm not sure 6 games in the group stages, if he plays all of them, is enough time. Ingar says, I hear you, Tom. Thank you, mate. I appreciate you for listening back to my comment and replying. He says, we had Saka, Martinelli at that age, and they smashed it. Play back 3 of Gabriel, Holding, and Saliba. I understand that, mate, about Saka and Martinelli. And you have to say, for me, I think Martinelli's a complete outlier. We didn't know he was going to be that good when he came in. And I suppose the devil's advocate to that would be that if Saliba was given a chance, he could be that good. But the flip side to that is he could flop completely. He could have a really bad start because he hasn't had the game time. Both Saka and Martinelli were playing in the youth development side for Saka, and in Brazil with Ituano for Martinelli. So it's just a different scenario, and he's coming back off an injury. I just think you have to consider all of those things before you think about that. Anthony says Saliba got destroyed by the Brighton under-23s. These people don't understand. He didn't. He basically strolled through that game. Just because a team concedes 2 goals doesn't necessarily mean defenders had a bad game. That's for sure. So Saliba actually had a very decent game against Brighton under-23s, and he pretty much strolled through it. So I don't think it's anything to do with that necessarily whatsoever. Dean says, just got that feeling that Arsenal will get Aouar and Jorginho. Jorginho was linked more heavily. I saw Matt Law, I believe, on Twitter tweeting quite heavily about him. Asmit says, I have no problem with selling him on loan. I'm amazed at management buying a player for 27 million and not using for 2 years. Now we don't have the money for the players we want. Obviously, Asmit, you have to think about the fact that when he was bought, no one knew that COVID was going to happen. No one knew that COVID was going to happen. So the club didn't expect the 27 million outlay on Saliba to have such a big impact on this summer. So you can't really look at that as a mistake, because no clubs knew that this was going to be coming, that would have such a negative impact. The league is, I think I saw a statistic, the leagues below the Premier League are losing around 100 million a month. But that's just below the Premier League. So think about how much the Premier League are losing in terms of their revenue. So it's a big, big problem. In regards to that, though, I just think that it's about the way you handle players. Look at the way that Chelsea dealt with having Thibaut Courtois, sent him out on loan to Atletico for, I think it might have even been 3 seasons before he came back and was one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League and now is at Real Madrid. So it's all about doing what is necessary to get the best from the players that you have. And that's what's important. RY says, Tom, what do you think about Fofana going to Leicester? What I think about Fofana going to Leicester, and I wrote an article about this for 101, link in the description if you want to check out my stuff over there, is that St Etienne are not making the same mistake that they made with Saliba. They've got a very, very good fee of around 40 million euros for this guy. He's very good. I think Leicester have made a good signing. I think they've now got a centre-back pairing in Fofana and Soyuncu for a long-term future, which is solid for them. They've needed to make that signing because Johnny Evans is 32, I believe, now. So they needed to make it. It's a really good signing, RY. I'm not jealous of it because I think we've made our own very good signing in Gabriel, and we've got Saliba to come through too. So I'm not jealous about it. I think it's a really good bit of business, personally. Wesley says, would the Championship be a better option for Saliba? I think that if we can get him into a Premier League side that can sort of give him regular minutes, I think that would be preferable, personally. That's just where I see it for now. Mark Jones says, looking like we're not getting any of our target players. This club is a joke and the owners have ripped the heart out of our club. You can only polish a crown so much. The thing is that we are under such strain right now, and I'm not trying to make excuses because it's not an excuse. It's just a reality. It's just the reality of what this is. You look at Manchester United. They're not getting Jadon Sancho from the looks of things. The only way they get Jadon Sancho is if they go and pay the 120 million euros for him to Borussia Dortmund. They've apparently bid around 90 million euros, and now they're in discussions with Barcelona for Dembele, which I would see as a very odd deal for both clubs. I think he suits Barcelona a lot, and they should keep him and really develop him. To send him to Man United makes no sense. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. You look at what's happened. The situation with Chelsea, and a lot of people have brought up Chelsea and how they've spent. Chelsea had a year without any transfers that they were able to make. They sold Hazard in that deal as well, in which they got over 100 million for him. They continuously make profit off their players. They send out on loan and then sell, and they're going to have to stop doing that soon because of new regulations that are coming in regarding loan players. And you just look at what teams are able to do in this market. It's been so slow. You look at the total spend of clubs in this window in comparison to previous windows, and it's a percentage. It's so much lower. It is not an excuse to bring up the pandemic to say why clubs aren't spending or aren't able to spend. Because you have to look at both sides of the coin with this. If you're a club that wants to buy, you are restricted in the money that you can spend. If you are a club that is selling, you want to get the most money that you can get for a player because you need to reinvest that money into signings because finances are strict. And it creates this sort of standoff situation with like Arsenal and Lyon between ourselves and Olas about Aouar, because Arsenal have a value of him. His value before pre-COVID was probably around, as Adam White said on our Expert Members podcast, about 60 million euros. And he reckoned that probably drops down to about 50 million euros. Now, Arsenal value Aouar and are able to pay about 40 million euros for him. And that means you've got this situation where millions, and when I say millions, I'm talking about 5 million euros is being squabbled over between the two clubs because they genuinely can't afford to just throw that money down without seeing investment. And I just think that a lot of people are forgetting the kind of like the difference from last summer to this summer, because we've been notorious, and people say Arsenal don't spend money. But that's a lot of rubbish, because we spend loads of money. We spend 25 million on Tierney and 72 million on Pepe and 8 million that rose to about 20 million on David Luiz. We might not spend well, but you can't blame the club for not spending at all. It used to be the rhetoric of saying that Arsenal don't spend money. Why won't you spend money? Spend, spend, spend. Well, we spent money, but we spent it rashly and we spent it wrongly. And you don't want Arsenal to just spend money for the sake of it. That's why I've been so on it about the Partey thing. And if we don't get Thomas Partey, whilst I'd like us to bring in a player in that position, we can't just waste money. It has to be on someone that's good, that's going to make a difference. It's the same with Aouar. If we don't get Aouar, you can't just go out and buy any old attacking midfielder. You have to make sure you're spending your money correctly, especially right now when money is so tight. So tight. Beast Titan says, Tom, don't waffle. Everton bought 3 players for 50 million. 2 of them play behind Rodriguez to help recover the ball. It's not about waffling, and I think that Everton have put themselves in a position where they've got backing. They've got backing from the owners. FFP has been relaxed this summer. Usmanov's now in there. Is it Mashiri? I think is also in there. So it's not about waffling, Beast. You need to understand the differences between the owners that are these 2 different clubs. It's as simple as that at the end of the day. They made a lot of money in the past from selling the likes of Lukaku. They have spent more than they've sold for sure, but they've got financial backing. Arsenal don't have that. Arsenal don't have that at all. So that's the difference between them. So I would not be bringing that up as any sort of excuse to compare Everton to us, because you just can't. And what else I would say is look, Everton have spent a hell of a lot of money on the likes of Michael Keane, Sigurdsson, etc., Richarlison. And have they got anywhere near Europe? No. They haven't got anywhere near Europe. Yet they're being brought up as an example now because they had a storming start to the season. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is banging them in. And funny thing about that is that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is one of their youngsters. He's one of the young players that was coming through, not one of the ones that they spent millions on. James Rodriguez has got a goal and an assist, I think, so far this season in those 3 games. So he had 3 good performances. He did well against Spurs, but he didn't impact the game to the point where he made them win. And he scored a goal and he got an assist, I believe, against West Brom, I think it was. But he blanked again in the following game. So I don't look at Everton as an example. I don't, because what have they achieved? Nothing. They haven't achieved anything yet. They've had a good start to the season, and we know what Arsenal fans can be like. We're very reactionary. We're very, very reactionary. So we see a team winning the first 3 of their matches against West Brom, a really bad Spurs side, and someone tell me who the last team was. I don't think it was an amazing side. In which Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored 1, I think it was. So I'm not looking at Everton, mate, and saying, yeah, we need to be looking and seeing what they're doing, because there's reasons why they can spend that money and there's reasons why Arsenal can't spend that money. So it's not about waffling, fella. I think you've got that one all wrong. Loafer Don says, who are all these people that think we can just sign who we want, and where did they come from? I get what you're saying. I wouldn't go down the route of calling people children. I think we need to be a little bit more, I think we need to be a little bit more level-headed about stuff than just calling people out like that. But at the end of the day, reactionary is the way that things go. Wesley says, reactionary indeed. Unbelievable stuff. Spot on from Lowford, says Vinny Eagle. Sakib says, Tom, Chelsea bought Kovacic and Pulisic in the last year, so they spent as much as us. Pulisic came out of the January spending, not in the summer. Kovacic was paid for, which I think came up on their last balance sheet. I was speaking to a Chelsea fan that the Kovacic deal didn't actually appeal on last summer's balance sheet at all. So I feel like it's not a good example. Well, it is a good example because they haven't spent any money in a year, because they were the sales that came from Pulisic and Kovacic came on the last year's balance sheet, not the year that they were banned from making the transfers. I'm aware that the Kovacic was paid during that summer, but if you speak to some people at Chelsea that are in the know about that sort of stuff, apparently it came up on the last year's balance sheet. So I'm sorry, but again, Chelsea are well within their rights to have that money available to them and spend it, especially with the Hazard situation as well. So yeah. And I'm not saying, for instance, I'm not saying that owners aren't tight. I'm not saying the owners are should be investing, and they're not. I feel like they should back the club within the reasons that they can, especially this summer when FFP has been relaxed. I've always been on the side of saying that they haven't been able to invest because of the FFP situation. Well, if FFP has been relaxed for this summer, I would have hoped that they would have backed everyone. They would have put money into it. But if that's not the case, then yeah, fair criticism. Completely fair. Matthew says, some people accept mid and low results and are quite content. I think it's about perspective at the end of the day. I think it's not about accepting things, like sort of accepting things at Arsenal. A lot of people have a lot of sort of expectation of what this club should be and what it isn't, and that they're frustrated by that. And I get the frustration because we want to be competing for the Champions League. We want to be competing for the league, and we're just not on the level of Liverpool, Man City, and Real Madrid, and Barcelona, and Bayern Munich right now. We're not on that level. But I mean, you can't say that people are content with being at this level. It's not about being content. Anyone turning around and not losing their minds at Arsenal's current transfer window, I'm sorry, it's just people that have got their heads screwed on and that are just looking at this from a rational perspective. That's all that it is. You can be irritated all you like about Arsenal not spending money. And I think that there is criticism in the right way. I think there's criticism to say that Arsenal should have done more to try and move some of their players on and possibly accepted lower fees to get money to reinvest, whether it was worth the player value or not. They should have done that. Okay? But to turn around and say that Arsenal should have got Aouar and Partey is just not realistic when we haven't moved enough players on. So you can't go sack Edu. And by the way, I should remind you all that we've been wanting a really good centre-back for a long time, and we've signed one. And we signed him. We signed Gabriel Magalhaes. And I think that sometimes just gets forgotten because everyone's desperate for a new toy. And I want one. I want a new player. I really want a player. I really do. I want an Aouar. I want a Partey. I wouldn't be putting on these shows and the tactical breakdowns and all of the things about these shows if I didn't want those players. I'm just realistic about what I think can happen. And I'm not going to cry about it if it doesn't happen. I'm just going to get behind my team. I'm going to get behind my manager, and I'm going to support us until the end. Because the most important business that Arsenal needed to do this summer was done. And I'm sorry, but there is no more important business that Arsenal could have done this season than signing Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to a new contract. That was the most important thing that we needed to do, and we did it. And so not give Edu and Arteta credit for getting that done is naive, and it's petulant, and it's just going against the rhetoric that people are supporting. So I'm happy with saying that Aubameyang signing a new deal, Gabriel being brought in, a top-class centre-back that a lot of other clubs wanted, bringing him in, getting Willian in on a free, getting Ceballos in for another season on loan, and hopefully integrating Saliba into the team, if not getting him out on loan this season. And there's still days left, and we could still sign Aouar. I would have loved Partey, but we just haven't done enough to move players on. It's as simple as that. Mark Jones says you can't say that Arsenal said they don't have to sell before they buy. Remember that? Exactly. Arsenal have to sell before they can buy. They have to sell. 100%. They have to sell. Arsenal's finances are so flatlined. It's ridiculous, and they need to sell. And I've said that continuously throughout the summer, is that we won't see significant spending unless Arsenal move players on. We've sold Martinez. We're hopefully being able to move on Kolasinac. We're hopefully going to be able to get some money in from Torreira. I still don't know the intricacies of that deal or what money is going to be coming in. But at the end of the day, because we haven't done that soon enough, we've not been able to reinvest. And that's a big shame. And that is a big criticism of the club. And I would criticise them rightly for that they haven't been able to get that done. But I'm not going to turn around and say that that Arsenal should be spending 45 million on Partey up front, by the way. It's not done in instalments. And Aouar should be being bought for 50 million euros and being annoyed if both of those don't happen. I still think it's likely that we can get one done, and that one is probably going to be Aouar. I'm still confident that we can do that. But you just need to temper your expectations. You just need to temper them. Like it's frustrating. It's really upsetting sometimes doing these shows as well. Vinny Eagle, I wanted to point out a chat because I wanted to highlight something that you said in the chat box. Where was it? Let me scroll up. I will find it. Sorry, Vinny. I will try and find it in a second. But effectively, it was asking me why am I addressing the people that are being quite exaggerative, and I address it because I'm not just going to sit here and only point out the points that agree with me. It's not a show, is it? People are entitled to their opinion. That's what the show's all about. Is that people are entitled to putting their opinion across. It might be different to mine. And that's what happens usually. And what people notice is they'll put their point in. Ingar, sorry, was it earlier on in the chat? Ingar, sorry, put his point in. I disagreed with it, and then he retorted, and I showed his retort point as well. And I talked about that. It's not about me throwing in comments that just agree with my opinion. And sometimes people have a go at me when I delete some of the comments on the videos. I delete the comments on the videos that are abusive, and that's as simple as that. Is that we won't have abuse on this channel. I had a guy email me the other day. Emailing me, thanking me for not swearing on my shows because he likes listening to the shows in the car of his kid, and he's like very thankful for the fact that I don't swear often. I mean, there was one time that he did slip out, but I was very annoyed, and I'd had 2 punctures on my car and got stuck in the Lake District, so I think I can be forgiven for that one. But it's not about getting angry and emotional and hyperbolic. This is all about having your own opinion, and you should be treating social media that way. And I'm sorry, but anyone on this show that comes in and comments in the comment section and says load of abuse, abuses other people, as far as I'm concerned, you can go and do one. It's not about that. I mean, the likes of Rydog and Yannick, who obviously disagree with me a lot, what I could turn around and do, I could turn around and just go around and block them. But I don't do that because the whole point of this is it's about opinions. It's about opinions. I'm not happy having anyone that's just happy to watch the world burn. I will block you for that. But at the end of the day, I don't mind people who want to disagree with me at all. And the whole point is that that you have people on. And Beast Titan, you're another one, aren't you? Beast Titan and me disagree on a lot of things. But I give a lot of people in the chat box credit because you tune in for every single show, whether you agree with my points of view or whether you don't. Because the whole point of these shows is it's called Raw Reaction. We react to this stuff and we debate it and we talk about it. And that's what it is. You can't swear, Tom. You're an educator. Not for long. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks and I'm done. 2 more weeks. Cole Halberg says, that's why you don't live react to matches, Tom. Yes, you will not catch me. Very rarely. It would have to be exceptional circumstances and a very nice opportunity, let's say, for someone to turn around and say, do you want to come and do a watch along? It would have to be the incentives to do that would have to be insane because I would be putting so much of my reputation on the line by doing a watch along because, yes, I don't stay very calm during matches, it's fair to say. I mean, if you haven't checked out the video I put up on the Gooner Talk TV Twitter account, which you can see above me, when I reacted to the Crystal Palace Man United game with the penalties, that's about as close as you've ever got to seeing me do a watch along. It wouldn't be pretty viewing. You wouldn't be getting people thanking me for not swearing on the channel if it was that case. Carter says, Tom, well, Granit Pirlo and El Iniesta pivot will be elite. Even if Barca come from the Champions League, we can beat it with those two. It might be that, you know, it might be El Neni and Xhaka this season. It might be that this season. Adama. Oh, by the way, Adama Traore, congratulations on getting us the Spanish team once again. I know you're not him. I just wanted to bring that up. What do you think of our... Who knows? RY says, any update on Nice Relson? I've heard nothing about it, actually. Genuinely about Relson, who, yes, is now going to become a thing. I've heard nothing about Reece Nelson whatsoever. And whether Relson goes out on loan, we'll have to wait and see. I think he should. That's my opinion, 100%. Ikuwawa says, football is about opinions. Always has been. Get used to it, 100%. Smash that opinion there, Ikuwawa, 100%. Vinny Eagle says 2 more weeks and your students have a chance of getting an A. Nah, there's no special treatment. No special treatment just because I'm leaving. Christopher Fung says, if we're only apart by about 10 million euros, is it worth it to lose our while by a nickel and doing it if we have to lose the money? Is the board preventing us from potentially spending more? Oh, it's a good question. It's a good question. And I'm always that guy that thinks, oh, what's an extra 5 quid? What's an extra 10 quid to go and get a starter and a dessert when you're out for a meal? But it's like 5 millions and 10 millions are worth more now in this market. And it is worth trying to get the best deal. Really is worth getting the best deal. So yeah. Let's go through a couple more comments and then we'll wrap things up. Fabrizio tweeted saying Partey is a long shot. Says Javier, I agree. He is still a long shot. The only way I can see this happening now is if the owners turn around and say, look, if you are convinced, Arteta, that there's a chance of us really going for it this season, we will back you and we will pay the buyout clause. The issue is that the owners had quite a bit to do, supposedly, with the Pepe deal from last year. They've kind of seen how that's turned out and gone, last time we backed you, you signed Pepe, look what's happened. So Yeah. Cyrus says, thoughts on Everton signing Ben Godfrey? I like Ben Godfrey. I think he's a good defender. 25 million quid's what I saw. I think that's a bit steep. And isn't it funny how well these relegated clubs are selling their players for? Ake, 41 million. Cantwell's being linked for 20 million. And now Godfrey for 25 million pounds. So isn't it mad? Callum Wilson was about 20 as well. So it's crazy how much these are getting. Absolutely crazy. Ingar says, Arteta is becoming like Wenger now, protecting the board and being their puppet. Very disappointed about this. Ingars, you have got the wrong opinion of Mikel Arteta. 100%. Like, Arteta is nothing like Wenger. Nothing like it. The only way that the only similarities that we've seen from those two right now is how they speak to the media, which is the only perception you have of these guys. I'm sorry, but it's just so different. And how it really frustrates me. It really, really frustrates me that we've got a manager this is his first job in management. And a lot of people have judged him for that. And that's fair enough because it is inexperience. Like, I get that. It's his first job in management. He took over a team that Unai Emery had put into the ground. But the mentality of the team after Unai Emery left was horrific. There were players that were awful. There was players that didn't want to be here anymore. The likes of Aubameyang and Lacazette did not want to be here. Aubameyang was on his last legs at the club, did not want to be here anymore, was happy to go because of what Unai Emery had done to our precious club. And Arteta came in and changed everything. Arteta came in and made Mustafi look like a bloody world beater. You had him improving players like David Luiz. You had us making massive waves against Manchester City in the FA Cup semi-final. Yes, we got knocked out of the Europa League. I get that. It was a really frustrating result, and I saw a lot of issues with that team, but it was still very, very early on. But across those 8 months, of course, with lockdown in between as well, he turned things around for us, and we won a trophy. And I just don't understand the hate towards him right now. I don't get it. I don't get the insults. I don't get people calling him a puppet. He's just doing what a manager needs to do. I'm sorry that he's not a Mourinho that comes out and says, well, the board didn't give me any money. Why on earth would you want the coach coming out and just battling away with the board in press conferences? You really want a Mourinho type to be coming out and slagging off the board in press conferences? I don't know what you're expecting. If they're not doing it, if he's not happy, he'll be having those conversations internally. If he's not happy with how the things have gone, that'll happen internally. You need to be rational about this stuff. Like, you need to be rational about what we can expect. Beast Titan says Jose would have gotten rid of half this lot. What did Jose win in his last season with Spurs? What was that? What was the documentary? All or Nothing? Well, it was nothing, wasn't it? It was nothing. And you weren't winning nothing. And you weren't winning anything. So if you really want Jose Mourinho to be manager of this club, I'd take a long, hard look at yourself. A long, long, hard look at yourself. Mark Jones says, get your seatbelts on if... Oh, no. Is our right back all season? Unbelievable. That's the insane... The criticism of our players is rife. Klopp did it. He said he can't sign players a couple of seasons ago. Why isn't Arteta doing it? And you know what's funny? Is that Klopp took over a Liverpool side. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what Arsenal fans, how they would have reacted in the first few months of Klopp's tenure? If you picked up the Arsenal fan base as a whole and moved it into being the Liverpool fan base during when Klopp took over, and you know what those first few months are like when it was dreary and drab and they weren't doing anything, and it took them ages to get to the point where they're at. Can you imagine the outcry? Klopp wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. Wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. Because you need to have patience. I get that. I get it's tough. I get it's really hard to not to want things now. I understand it. I get that you've been waiting a long, long time, but these things don't come easy. And there's a lot of other teams in this league and a lot of other clubs in the world that want the best players and want to sign players and want to win trophies. It's not easy. It's not easy. Cut a Stage says, Tom, if Jose finishes above Arsenal, would you hail him to be the best manager ever? It's a bet. No. Why would I do that? Everything's situational at the end of the day. Glenn Cook, Klopp wouldn't have survived 2 years. Exactly. Klopp wouldn't survive for 2 years at Arsenal at that case. Can you imagine? Chris says there are fake accounts saying the deal is fine and they are not official. I'm assuming that's in regarding to Aouar. Rodney says Klopp is a big fan of Arsenal, by the way. He speaks on this squad. We should probably be more like him. I mean, Klopp, who's the manager of one of our rival teams, supports our team more than some of our fans do. Machiavelli says, couldn't we compare Klopp's first few seasons to Unai Emery's? I mean, you could compare it. And what the comparison you would make is that after the amount of time that you got with there, Klopp's first few seasons at the club didn't have a team mentally shot, didn't have a team without a clue of what they were doing, didn't have a team that were mentally more fragile than after Arsene Wenger left. So if you want to compare things, there's your comparison. Plus, Klopp achieved Champions League football, which Unai Emery certainly didn't do. He lost the Europa League final. So there you go. Zoxpack says, you can't sell what nobody wants to buy. A lot of the players are overpaid and a lot of the teams can't afford their wages. Fantastic point. Aizen says, Klopp got top 4 2016-17. I'm pretty sure every Arsenal fan would have accepted that. Exactly. Tom, are you ignoring our Hellerin? Hellerin's not a thing, okay? It's not a thing. We're not doing this Hellerin thing. Ray Anderson says, we still have 3.5 days left the transfer window. Exactly. And until then, we can't exactly really kind of evaluate everything until it's done. Until it's done. Unai had no directional system, says Richie. If you were to ask what style of play Unai Emery was trying to do, I have no idea. Ingars, I hear you, Tom, but Unai's squad was significantly worse and took us to the Europa League final when Arteta lost against Olympiacos. I don't hate. I just think that we had to go for Ancelotti, Allegri, even Poch. Look, at the time, Allegri was being linked, and I completely get the idea of going for an experienced manager like an Ancelotti or like an Allegri. And I'm not saying that it would have been a bad decision to do that. I just think that Arsenal were at a crossroads where they could afford to take a risk and go for an Arteta to do this short period of transition. It might turn out being a really bad mistake, but it's not looked so bad so far when we've won a blooming trophy, and one of the best trophies that you can win, not the League Cup, not your pre-season trophies, not the Audi Cup, not the Emirates Cup, the bloody FA Cup. And we went and we won that, and we beat Manchester City and Chelsea on the way to doing it. So I think it was already. I think it's worth it. We've seen improvements all day long. I get what you're saying, guys. 100%. I get the idea of wanting an experienced winner, but what you've got with Arteta is you've got longevity, and I'm hoping that we can keep him at the club and we can suffice his needs by backing him, and that's what I'm hoping we're going to do with the last few days of the window. I just think you got to wait. I don't even agree with the whole thing about Unai's squad was significantly worse and he took us to the Europa League final. I don't necessarily agree with that because there was players in that squad that you had Ozil that was still playing at that point, and he wasn't the Ozil that we've been. I mean, you look at the Ozil that played against Leicester with that amazing goal of Aubameyang. And Ozil now is a complete shadow of that player. You had Matteo Guendouzi that was looking really, really good, and you don't have that Matteo Guendouzi now because of what's happened. There were players in that team that were still very good. You had a Hector Bellerin that was better during that time as well than he's currently been, I think, for Arteta. And the thing about Arteta is that he's took a lot of those players that were so poor under Unai Emery and so poor like Mustafi and so poor like David Luiz, and he's made them better. So that's the thing. Winning cups is a lot about luck. I'm sorry, Ikawawa. If you think that the game against Manchester City was lucky, and to follow that up with the game against Chelsea that was lucky, I think you're going to be making a lot of excuses for the rest of your life, mate. Jubilani says, why are we discussing managers when we have one of the best managers in the world? Thank you, Jubilani. I wouldn't call him that yet. I don't think he's up there one of the best managers in the world, but I love the positivity, mate. I still think he's a long way off being one of the best managers in the world still. But he's on the way. I'm really hoping. I'm loving the positivity, mate. Christopher Fung says, I'm scared if Arteta doesn't get backing in the final days of the window, though. We're far away from that January window. I agree with you, mate. Zaid says, Tom, do you believe Arteta when he says the board and owners are fully backing him? I'm struggling to believe it, considering we might only get one or two of our targets, if that. I don't think we only get one or two of our targets. I think we've got some of our targets that we went out to do this summer. We wanted to get a really good centre-back. We did that. We wanted to sign William and nick him away from Chelsea. You wanted to keep him. We did that. We wanted to get Sabas back on loan for a season after a stellar end to the last season. We did that. We wanted to go out and we wanted to target a really top-class midfielder. We've not done that yet. There's still days left of the window. Things can still happen. We wanted to smooth players on that were ultimately not good enough for the club. We've still got to do that. We have not just met one or two of the targets. We've met a few of our targets. We've met several targets this summer that have completely gone under the window and under the rug, and you won't be able to see them because there's so much focus at the moment on Aouar and Partey, all thanks to the media, obviously bringing all these links up. And if we didn't have the media, if we didn't have socials, and if we were still in the case of you would just read the paper, there wouldn't be anywhere amount of this furore about all of this, would there? And we would just wait, until the news broke that Arsenal were signing someone. But that's not the case, because we're a information-hungry group of people, and we constantly want this information to be fed to us all the time. But it can't be. And that's why a lot of misinformation gets said, and that's why a lot of people get a lot of education, and they get ill education throughout the transfer window. And that's one of my real passions, is to hopefully be able to create content that is informative and actually gives you the information. That's ultimately why I'm doing this channel, because I'm hopefully giving you information that is legitimate. And when I tell you about footballers like Thomas Partey and about Aouar and about Gabriel, that I'm giving you the expert insight from the experts. It's not me telling you what I think of them. It is after I've learned a fair amount of them. But first of all, I go and get you the experts that have been watching them. And that's what I want you guys to be educated about players that you didn't necessarily know too much about, and to give opinions and get your opinions on players that you didn't necessarily know too much about, and that you start to know more about. That's the whole point of why I'm doing this, is so that I can give you guys the best information possible, because I just think there's so much noise and so much mess in the soup of the social media of football, that you are unfortunately exposed to so much fake news and so much just horrible information, to hyperbolic views, to silly opinions, and you get exposed to it continuously. I'm just hoping that this channel has given you some form of education about the right way to think about players, the tactical way to think about players, the level-headed way to think about things, not just doing things for attention, which unfortunately quite a lot of people do. Anish says, Tom, love your content. I suggest you do a tactical breakdown of the game Arsenal play, not the player. It would be great. I would love to do that too, Anish. Right now, my life is insane. It's a case of, you get up, here's my day. If you want an insight into my day, this is what it's like at the moment. You set your alarm at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. You get up, I go to work, you teach for 6, 7, 8 hours, doing a job that you're leaving in 2 weeks. So you can imagine my mentality and what that's like, and having to do that job, and the mentality of you want to be doing a different job. So you do that, your mind's working for 8 hours straight. I come home, I get about an hour like I have now to do a video, and I then go on and do my shift of the job that I love doing and writing about football. So, and then maybe in the evening I'll get some spare time to spend with myself and with the other half. So that's my day. So once teaching is done, out of the way and gone, you can see the pain in my face when I talk about it. That's how I feel about it. I'm very honest about it. Then I can get on with my job. I can get on with writing about football, talking about football, having so much more time for the channel, putting my whole life into focusing on football. And then, Anish, then I'll be able to get on to do some more tactical pieces about games and put some more content and more effort into doing that sort of thing. So, yeah, I'm really glad that I've got the job that I've got now in a couple of weeks' time when I'm starting full-time, because I'm going to be able to fully focus on that and football and this channel and getting some really good content for you guys. So, yeah, it's crazy. Life is mad right now. Life is mad. Zaid says, 358 live viewers, 52 likes. Come on, guys. Big up, Tom. Like the video. Thanks, Zaid. Much appreciate that, mate. RY says, might be reading into it too much, but Arsenal just uploaded Arteta press conference video, which is titled around transfer window incomings, outgoings, potentially busy end. I mean, that is just the title. You know what we're like. Oh, why? We read into things massively. Corey says Arteta has ultimately turned us from a soft-centered, weak-willed, chaotic team to a disciplined, organised side that can beat other top sides. What a wonderful, wonderful summary. What a wonderful summary. What a wonderful way to sort of, you know what? We've been going for 48 minutes, Corey, and I think that's probably been my comment of the show today. So I'm very glad that you've got that positivity, and I'd like to end the show on that comment. As I said, this is not the last bit of content you're getting from us today. A little bit later on this evening, you'll be getting an interview with myself and Alvaro Romeo, who is a massive guy in terms of Spanish football. He works for TalkSport and Dazen, and he does a Totally Football show with James Richardson and James Horncastle and Rafa Honigstein, and he's their Spanish guy on that show. So he is going to be all in the know about Thomas Partey and about Lucas Torreira's move to Atletico Madrid, and we're going to have a big discussion about that so you guys can get some expert insight and proper content into your ears. So I hope you tune in for that. I really hope you've enjoyed this kind of mixture of talking about transfers and a little bit about life and the way that we should perceive things and take things in. If you have, please drop a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and I will see you again very, very soon. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, as it always is, and as always, up the Arsenal.